Welcome to Surviving Every Day. Some days it takes all your energy to get through just one day. This is especially true for those of us who have been disabled through a life-changing event. We're going to show you how you can take one step at a time and enjoy the journey along the way. You will hear from other people and how they did it.
Teach us to count the days. Teach us to make the days count. Lead us in better ways. Somehow our souls forgot. Life means so much. Life means so much.
Welcome to Surviving Every Day. I'm Leslie Pavia, and in January of 1994 on Super Bowl Sunday, I suffered a stroke when a blood vessel in my brain burst while I was sleeping. Now, the good news is I recovered enough to compete and work in several half marathons and just returned from Greece recently. I'm actually in the studio with two of my friends, Mandy Hogan, who is Executive Director of Windrush Farms. Welcome, Mandy.
Thank you, Leslie.
And Dr. Paul Spiers, who is also from Windrush Farms, and he developed a program called Horses for Heroes, which we are going to dive into more later. But welcome, Paul.
Thank you, Leslie. It's glad to be here.
Thank you. Now, I'm going to actually start with you, Dr. Spiers. If you can tell us, I noticed you're in a wheelchair. Can you tell us kind of the background as to how you ended up in a wheelchair?
Yes, I ended up in a wheelchair. I was actually riding a horse, and I was riding with the Myopia Hunt on the North Shore, which is a group of people who chase hounds around the countryside. There's no fox being hunted. They just follow a scent. The horse that I was riding tripped on a fence, and I had a bad fall. And as a result of that fall, I had both a traumatic brain injury and a spinal cord injury. And subsequent to that, and after my recovery in Boston, and I came back to Topsfield, where I lived at that time, and the people at Windrush Farm had me back on a horse before I was back at work.
So it's good to hear that your first love, your love for horses, is not, you allowed this to help other people by developing this program, Horses for Heroes. But it didn't stop you from getting back on the horse again, you know?
Well, the old expression, Leslie, is if you fall off, you have to get back on.
Oh, my goodness.
And the woman who founded Windrush Farm, Marjorie Kittredge, is someone who believed in that saying. But as a result of becoming involved with Windrush and again riding myself, when I became aware of a program that was going on both at Fort Hood in Texas and also at the Caisson Platoon, which are the horses that are used to bury our dead in Arlington Cemetery, when I became aware of this program that was using these horses as therapeutic vehicles for men who had been injured in Afghanistan and Iraq, who were at Walter Reed Medical Center. When I learned of that program, I at that time was on the national board for NARA, which is in charge of equine-assisted activities at 700 centers in the United States. I decided it should become a national initiative, that as many centers as possible who felt that they could do so appropriately should start working with our veterans. And I asked Mandy Hogan, who is our executive director at Windrush Farm, who you'll be speaking with in a moment, I asked Mandy to basically have a pilot program at Windrush.
So what exactly is Horses for Heroes now?
Horses for Heroes is a way of working with horses in the same way that we've been doing in this country for over 40 years, in a therapeutic sense, both for recreation, for balance, for improving physical stamina. Also, many of the activities are done without the person actually being riding on the horse. Sometimes it's just interacting with the horse. It's been found, for example, it's very useful for our many veterans who are coming back from Iraq and Afghanistan with post-traumatic stress disorder. They work very well in something we call equine-facilitated psychotherapy, where they relate to the horse. And the horse, as you know, is a skittish animal. He's kind of afraid of things himself. And so
Yes,
someone who's dealing with fears and with irrational reactions to fear can often communicate better with another sentient being, in this case the horse, who has the same kind of reaction to things that scare him. So there are a number of ways in which the Horses for Heroes program works.
Wow. I'm just amazed. Well, I'm going to backtrack a little bit because I know you had said something about it was horseback riding that is the reason you're in a chair. I know you've been in the war. I know you've been in the service. I would have thought it would have been more as a returning vet, like something that happened.
No, I served in the military in Canada,
Yep.
and I served strictly in a reserve capacity. I did not see any wartime action, and this was many moons ago anyway. But because of that, of course, I'm sensitive to the needs of our veterans, and to see that there was a way that our therapeutic riding programs could help them was of great importance to me.
That's so good to hear you talk about this, because I personally have a brother who is in the service, and honestly, he gave up a lot to go over there, and the world's going to be a different place when he comes back. It's not going to be. So it'll be nice to know that there are things that a returning vet could do.
Yes, there are many opportunities, and the Veterans Administration is very interested in developing these alternative kinds of opportunities.
Now, what would you say are some of the benefits to this particular?
Well, the benefits, I think, as we were saying before, some of them are very much physical, but many others are very psychological and social. We have one veteran who works with us at Windrush, who is a Vietnam veteran who suffered from a severe case of post-traumatic stress disorder, and it was a trauma to him to leave his house every day just to pick up the mail. And for 30 years, that's the way he was living. Then he came and he started to be around the horses. We can't keep him out of the farm now. He's there, and he brings pastries and donuts for everyone, and he's in fact our #1 ambassador.
So how did you get him to the farm to start with?
He came as part of the pilot that we were working on, and from there he just was like a fish in water. And so we opened up a door for him, and that's what I think therapeutic riding can do for many of these veterans.
Right.
We opened up a door for him, and he walked through. This has been an experience at some of the other centers that are doing this nationally. There's a center in Illinois called Brave Hearts, where they actually had to set up a cantina because the guys were all hanging around the farm after their lessons, and they were using it as an opportunity to socialize and to talk about their experiences.
I believe it. It's almost like you got to kick them out, make them go home. No.
Right, which we weren't going to do.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, what would you say are, how would you measure the progress of the program? Like, how do you measure if somebody's going to benefit from this type
Well,
of
measuring
program?
an individual is the same way we measure other individuals therapeutically. But I think in terms of measuring the success of the program, for the past 3 years, we've done a pre-conference workshop at the national meeting for NARA, for this national organization. And Mandy and I were just at that conference in Denver 2 weeks ago.
Yep.
And we learned that it's gone from 34 centers helping veterans to now 94 centers helping veterans in the United States, NARA-approved centers. So the program is, in fact, expanding, and now as many more of these veterans are coming back to their homes, if they've been injured or they have disorders, they go first to Walter Reed or one of the other major centers, but now they're coming back to their local VA centers. And this is when the Horses for Heroes program can be of help to them.
Wow. So there's definitely a need there.
Oh, there's a need.
There's a
need. Yeah.
So what can you share with us maybe some of the pitfalls or some of the obstacles you run up against when in this particular program?
The obstacle that any new program runs into, it's having enough money to run it.
Cost.
Cost is a very big, because needless to say, horses is perhaps not as expensive as a person as a therapist, but they still need to be fed, housed, taken care of. And so for every rider who comes to us, there's a cost associated with maintaining the horses and having the equine therapists available to them. Mm-hmm. And so we are always open to the idea of people who want to help us sponsor this program. And we've been very fortunate to have a few donors who've come up along the way, but that only sponsors one session for one group of veterans.
Right. Right. Now, where do you get your horses from?
The horses come from many different places. Some of them are donated to Windrush. Some of them we've in fact bought a few horses over the years who seemed particularly appropriate. But the horses who work at Windrush are specially trained and have a very particular temperament. So they're horses that aren't fazed by the fact that there are all kinds of people around them. They don't get jumpy with the noise. I mean, they have to be taking care of their riders.
User-friendly.
Very user-friendly. That would be the right word.
Do they have a license? Do they have to, like, in other words, is there certain, do the horses have to have certain requirements?
They have to pass Mandy Hogan's scrutiny.
Oh, okay.
When Mandy says they're ready to be therapeutic horses.
Oh, okay, that's awesome. Well, now, real quick, how can we find you if we are interested in participating in the Horses for Heroes program, which is H4H? Mm-hmm. How can we find you?
Well, it can be found through the Windrush website at www.windrushfarm.org, and I think we'll be showing that several times during the program.
Yep.
And that's the best way to get information, or by contacting us. We're located in Boxford, Massachusetts, and you can find us in the phone book and just contact us, and we'll give you more information.
Okay. Now, I do have one more question before we go to some clips here. And so you don't have to have a computer to find you. We have the phone number, right?
Yes.
Did we show that phone number?
978-682-7855.
Okay. So let's take a few minutes to look at some of the clips that I have.
There's the main barn at Windrush Farm. Been there for many years. It houses many of our therapeutic horses. There's a picture of what we'd like to see is somebody out of their wheelchair, and that's at the entrance to our indoor arena. This is a rider actually from the Caisson Platoon Group in Washington, D.C., and a NARA instructor, Mary Jo Beckman, who's working with him. So, as we said, it was a few years ago that we started this program, and this was the first visiting group of veterans that came to see us at Windrush Farm. Their van is from the VA healthcare system, and they're helping a veteran onto a horse is Mrs. Kittredge on the left, who was the founder of Windrush, and Mandy, who's with us today. And there we see him strapped into a special saddle that has a way of holding him on the horse. And here's a young man named Mike, who is a Vietnam veteran, and Mike drove all the way up from southern Massachusetts just to come to this one session.
Wow.
And these horses, this again is the Caisson Platoon in Washington, where the soldiers that work with the Caisson horses who will bury our dead at Arlington help soldiers currently. This was at our first meeting, and on my right is the Sergeant Major of the Massachusetts National Guard. You see Richard Belanger.
He's the one in the uniform, right?
Yes, the one in the uniform. The fellow on the left was at that time one of our board members, a fellow named Robert Johnston. And there's one of our participants.
She's giving a kiss.
She's giving a kiss. It goes to show you how special these horses really are.
Is this one of your first horses?
No, not one of our first horses, but Cadence has been there for a little while. And this is where someone is doing hippotherapy. Colby has a very unusual neurodevelopmental disorder, and hippotherapy allows the therapists to work with the horse. Elizabeth here has another neurodevelopmental disorder called spina bifida. And here's another one of our students, and Tucker has cerebral palsy. So we work with a wide variety of both children and adults. And there you see a special lift that we have that allows us to lift people who can't themselves get on the horse. It's like a garage door opener, picks them up, slides over, and lets them come down on the horse.
Wow.
And there again we see Diana with cerebral palsy doing hippotherapy. There are things that a therapist can do from the back of a horse that they can't do on a therapy table because the therapy table doesn't move. And it wouldn't work without our volunteers, and here we see a good example of our volunteers leading some riders out in the open land at Windrush, which is one of the unique aspects it has. And Windrush was one of the very first therapeutic riding centers in North America. And there is yours truly.
Can we stop it right here? I have a question.
Yep.
On this. The strap that you're on, does that stay on the horse? Like once you get unhooked from the what do you call it? The apparatus or whatever?
Yes.
Does that seat that you're sitting on, does that stay right there?
I'm not actually sitting on
There's
a seat.
no seat.
There are hooks under my legs.
Oh, really?
I'm not on a seat. There are hooks under my legs, and that thing comes down on my sides near my ribs, and that's how it holds me up.
Okay,
it's not actually sitting on anything. The hooks just go underneath my legs, and the sides come into my side, and it picks me up that way.
So it does. So I thought maybe it looked like what you see somebody that goes swimming. You know,
Yeah,
they
no,
dump.
it's not a transfer like that. No.
Okay.
So that when I go back down on the horse, I'm not sitting on anything but the horse.
Okay.
Hopefully, I'm sitting on the horse.
Okay. I have a couple questions for you, Mandy.
Sure.
First of all, is Windrush Farm only rehab for only therapeutic, or?
No, Windrush Farm, in fact, has classes for riders with disabilities and for what we call recreational riders. So we have adults and children that come Monday through Friday, and they're all levels of abilities that ride at Windrush.
Okay, that's awesome. So anybody could go horseback riding there?
That's correct. We do a series of lessons, so yes, anybody can come and ride with us.
Okay, so what would you say are some of the qualifications for a program to get started?
Wow. To start a program, you need a facility. You need some very enthusiastic staff people or instructors, and you need some good horses. You need a lot of training because it's not something that you can just simply plunk people on the horse's back. You need to have a good background in the different kinds of disabilities, what kind of horses you need for the program. You have to have the ability to train them. You need to have volunteers, volunteers to help you keep riders safe on the horse's back. So there's an awful lot. So you need it can be a small facility.